Hi, good day everyone. My name is Alex. Welcome to this webinar presented by Leader. I'm Leader's national trainer, and I'd firstly like to thank everyone for attending today. We know your time is valuable, so really appreciate it. It's nice to see so many people actually attend this. So first off, I'll start by saying I'm a massive Ubiquiti fanboy, as you could have guessed. And today's webinar is specifically centered around Ubiquiti, and specifically the UISP router, which we'll talk about in a fair amount of detail. This is a fairly quick session. It's only about 30 minutes long. Questions are encouraged during the session, so please feel free to post them through as we continue through the training. We'll answer all of the questions as we get to the end. Joining along with me today is Chris Sutherland, who is the product manager for Ubiquiti within Leader, who will also be assisting me with answering some of the questions that you guys might post through. So with that being said, we can get started and take a look at the UISP router. Before we do that though, we need to look at what UISP is and really talk about what it's used for and how you guys would use this on a day-to-day basis. So essentially UISP is the application which you use to control all of the Ubiquiti UISP equipment. It's kind of similar to how the unified products are managed through one central interface. And if you know the unified interfaces and you know the unified product, you'll feel right at home on the UISP interface. It's very similar. It can kind of be seen as a hybrid cloud environment where the equipment is on-premise, but the actual management of the devices is hosted in the cloud. So as the name implies, the equipment is more centered around ISP usage, but it's not exclusively for that. Ubiquiti have grown leaps and bounds in terms of the equipment that they have outdoors, and specifically in the outdoor space. Many of you would be familiar with how they started and how fragmented and Lego-like outdoor wireless solutions were back in yesteryear when they just got started. Today, we are seeing a widespread increase in adoption for outdoor equipment, and we're seeing massive increases in speed, the length and the distances that these links can cover, and the tools that are now being presented along with UISP as well. It's more than just a management interface. It's ideal for using or for managing multiple customers, multiple sites, and it has a business aspect of it as well. So we're seeing a big shift as well away from the traditional 2.4 and 5 gigahertz equipment. That still has its place, but it's not replaced completely just yet. And that's predominantly due to the crowded nature of that spectrum. We're also starting to see a massive revolution in terms of the modulation and data rates achievable, which all means that speed is increasing on outdoor wireless links. Again, this all part of the UISP stack, and everything that we're discussing today is specifically focused around UISP products and the outdoor equipment. We're also seeing a move to 60 gigahertz equipment. We've seen this a lot, specifically due to how flooded the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz ranges are. And the main benefit of 60 gigahertz is that it's practically interference free, and it's enabling ultra high speed multi-gigabit per second communication. We've also found that 802.11, the protocol, is nearing its limits, and ultimately Ubiquiti have moved past them through their own proprietary protocol called LTU, which we'll talk about in a moment. So what the UISP application offers us is a complete set of tools to manage your devices, regardless of their physical location, and you have central management of everything in one place. UISP is pretty cool. It allows you to see real-time insights on how your devices are performing and your network status. Again, if you're used to the unified interface, this will look very familiar. You get a lot of information at a glance. You can even see stuff like your coverage area. It's represented visually in a map, and you can see your site locations from there as well. Very cool as well, so that it shows you your device topology, and it makes it easy to see which devices are connected to your network and do admin tasks on them, like updating firmware, applying changes in bulk, etc. All of it done very easily through one interface. On the business application side of it, or the business operations side of it, this is what really sets Ubiquiti apart from competitors. These are the tools that allow you to actually manage your customers on the Ubiquiti products while using Ubiquiti products. Ubiquiti has a full suite of CRM capabilities built directly into UISP. And with this, you can actually manage your customer invoices. You can do stuff like track their usage. You can enable or suspend services. You can do that automatically as well. And you can even do stuff like adjust data rates. It's extremely powerful and saves you months of work to integrate third-party systems to do the same. They also integrate third-party billing gateways such as PayPal, and there's a couple of others as well for easy payments handling. So it really brings together all of the components that you would have had to typically get through third parties and through different fragmented systems into one complete interface where you can manage everything in one central place. From a IT admin's perspective, I think this is very cool. I love the idea of having everything central. It means I don't have to break out to separate interfaces to manage different vendors, portals, etc. It also makes updating and maintenance just a lot simpler. Of course, this is all on the UISP side, but Ubiquiti also have a tool that allows you to do link planning. Again, because this is outdoor wireless equipment predominantly, it's pretty tough to do outdoor wireless link planning, especially if it's over multiple kilometers or in urban areas. And Ubiquiti's Design Center tool is really good at that. It's very good at allowing you to see if you have line of sight. Line of sight, of course, is a requirement for outdoor links. And to make sure that your Fresnel zones stay clear, etc., which is extremely important for designing reliable links and links that can survive stuff like rain, fade, etc. So Design Center was built specifically to allow you to do all of this, and you can very easily work from there and work on building successful links and see if your link planning actually pans out. So looking more at the hardware side of it, there's obviously an extremely broad range of Ubiquiti products in this space. It caters to a wide range of scenarios and solutions. It's really too much to cover everything today, but we can take a quick glance of each type, and then we'll look at how the UISP router fits into the solution as well. So the first one up is the AirMax products. I think most of you would be very familiar with these products already. AirMax products, of course, are ideal for long-range point-to-point and point-to-multipoint solutions in both the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz spaces. AirMax, it uses Ubiquiti's proprietary implementation of the 802.11 protocol, and they've developed their product stack from that, really, and that's essentially where they began. And the next evolution of this is the LTU products. LTU, in case you were wondering, is short for long-term Ubiquiti, and that really reflects their plan for their wireless products. And what we're seeing through this is a departure from the 802.11 protocol, and Ubiquiti instead starting to use their own proprietary protocol. This is done for a very good reason. It allows much higher throughput than what is currently possible on the 802.11 protocol, and it also allows for greater client counts. Of course, Ubiquiti also do the AirFiber products, which ultimately are the top of the range products in terms of speed and throughput, and are ideal for wireless bridges. So the AirFiber, you guys would probably know as well. It's ideal for multi-gigabit per second and full duplex communication. And lastly, Ubiquiti's Wave products, which are designed for point-to-multipoint solutions in the interference-free 60 gigahertz spectrum. Of course, Ubiquiti also does a range of switches and routing, which is what we're going to look at partly today. They do the EdgeMax product as well as a range of fiber solutions. So today's training isn't really focused around that. What we're looking at specifically is the UISP router. So firstly, let's take a look at what it is. As you'd expect, it's a router. It offers full layer 3 functionality. This includes VLAN creation, inter-VLAN routing. It has firewall capabilities, pretty much everything that you would expect from a router. The primary purpose of this device is to function as an inexpensive routing solution to be used client side. So the UISP router is capable of powering up to 8 UISP wireless devices, and it actually uses 27-volt passive PoE, which is directly bolted onto this device itself. And you'll see it has 110 watt PoE power budget to enable it to power those devices. It also offers a gigabit per second SFP port, which is pretty good for uplink purposes, or even environments where it's really hard to reach the router with traditional Ethernet access, which is where that really comes in handy. It's wall mountable as well, which I know sounds like something we shouldn't care about, but it's a surprisingly important aspect of this device, and we'll talk about that in a second. Looking at some of the other specs on this device, it is completely fanless as well, which means you can use it indoor environments without causing too much disruption. If it needs to go onto a desk, it doesn't cause people to complain. It also features a extremely wide operating temperature range, so from -10 all the way up to +50 degrees Celsius, which means it is resilient if it's not in a perfect environment and not air conditioned. Also make a note here that these devices are extremely competitively priced, especially if you consider the range of environments that these can be used in, as well as the management capabilities that you actually get with them. Again, it's a full layer 3 router, and all of the management capabilities that you get from UISP works seamlessly with this device. So you can manage this device and hundreds of other devices together in one single interface. To me, one of the best features, of course, is how easy it is to set up the equipment. The UISP router features built-in Bluetooth Low Energy, and you can actually use your mobile device to set it up. You can simply use an app from the respective app stores, and this can be used for both your router setup as well as doing stuff like alignment for outdoor links, etc., directly from the app. As someone that's climbed towers before, I can tell you that it's pretty hard working a laptop while you're 20 meters in the air. And I think it's pretty ideally suited to technicians that actually need to do this. And it's nice and easy for you to fire up your mobile device instead of using a full bulky laptop on a high site. Really where this comes into play, and it's what I alluded to briefly earlier, and it's UISP's, the router's party trick, is how it can be used. So Ubiquiti have published this video to YouTube, which shows how some of the products will actually integrate to the UISP router. Some of these products are still in early access, but this is a public video. You guys can view this online. Essentially, this video shows how you are able to build a complete micro point of presence at a customer. So the key thing here is how sleek and unobtrusive everything is, which is typically a pain point if you're trying to build a point of presence at a customer site. One of the main pain points we typically see as well is how do you actually power up a router that's not at or close to a power point. Ubiquiti have a proprietary tool for this, and it actually allows you to power up the router up to 15 meters away from the actual power supply. Ubiquiti also showing here an external enclosure which you can actually use to mount the UISP router or UISP switch into. And it provides a method of protection, so you don't have it exposed to the elements. And with this, it actually enables you to do power redundancy as well. That's another common problem that we see on site. The ability, if you're at a customer's premises and they accidentally switch off the power, it can be painful if you have a micro pop set up. So with this, you actually have the ability to add on redundant power as well. So it also looks like you can even connect up external batteries, so not just the ones provided by Ubiquiti, which is really ideal for long power outages. So most of these products, like I said, are still in early access. If you haven't registered for early access yet, I highly encourage you to do that. Ubiquiti always preview their latest and greatest products there, and it's a nice way to see what's really coming from them as a brand. So let's talk about the various use cases. So firstly, I'll just mention that it's not just for ISPs. You can use this anywhere where you require routing. Anything that needs BGP, OSPF, VLAN, etc. That's really where it's designed to go into. The ability to actually power this device while it's 50 meters away from the power source, to me, is pretty revolutionary. I think it really allows you much greater flexibility in terms of where you're actually going to put this, so you're not just stuck on a specific location and having to mount it indoors, etc. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you can use this. So let's look at the various solutions. essentially, it can be used as a routing solution for last mile client equipment solutions. So what I mean by this is if you have a long distance link from one of your points of presence, or high sites as we traditionally call it, and you have a link to your customer site, and you want to repeat that signal off to another customer, but without the data being exposed to the customer that you're primarily linked to, that's exactly where this router is ideal for. So it allows you to build a micro high site at each client environment if you want to do it that way. And of course, you have full routing capabilities built into this, so you can make sure that whatever you apply as best practices for your network gets applied through to this as well. It's an ideal way for you to extend your wireless coverage as well. If you're, like I said, if you're trying to build a small point of presence, it's really ideal for that. Or of course, it can be used as a normal indoor routing solution as well. And again, because it's low cost and low noise, it's pretty ideal in terms of using it indoor spaces as just a regular router. The big thing for me is the fact that it is fanless, it's low noise, so you can really mount it anywhere. It's not something that needs to go into a server rack, and it's not a loud switch that people are complaining about constantly. Like I said before, all of the functionality that I showed you in the interface that is available on this device, and setup and deployment is really simple, which means your technicians don't have to spend as much time on premise. So that's really it for the UISP router. The Ubiquiti do a UISP switch as well, which pretty much has the same functionality except for the routing capabilities. So it's a layer 2 device instead of layer 3. Highly encourage you to take a look at that as well. And then of course we're waiting eagerly for the products which are in early access to make this usable in outdoor environments, especially with the power redundancy options, etc. So that's really it for this webinar. It's really short. What I will just quickly mention is that if you found any of the information here interesting, or if you would like any additional information, please do feel free to reach out to myself or your account manager. And also, I would highly recommend that you guys check out the Leader Academy site. So Leader Academy is where we host or show the Ubiquiti training. We do talk about the outdoor wireless links extensively and best practices and how you can actually build your own ISP as part of the UBWS and UBWA courses. We pretty much have coverage for all of Australia. And if you do have a requirement to host this in an area which is not covered, we can accommodate that as well. There's just a minimum seat requirement for that. So highly encourage you to check this out. And if you require any additional information on Ubiquiti products, we do have up and coming webinars as well. So any other webinars that you might be interested in, you can register on the Academy. And then any of the past webinars and videos are also available on the site. And stuff like 3CX training, there's even Microsoft training, etc. It's all hosted on the Leader Academy site. So with that being said, I'm going to quickly take a look at the questions that you guys post through. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to post them through now, and we'll be happy to work through them. I'll also just mention before everyone runs off, we do have a prize draw. So you can actually win your own UISP router, and we are going to do a prize draw in a moment. I just want to see if there's any questions that come through. So I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Let me just check the chat. Okay, so there's a question that asks, can we send through the link to the Academy? Sure, we can do that. And we'll also send out a link to this video recording as well, directly after this event is finished. Okay, and then there is, so there's a question that says, is there a Wi-Fi capability? So these devices do not have built-in Wi-Fi, although because it's a router, you can essentially connect up another access point to it if you want. You can break it out to your Unify internal network, for example. So you can completely manage this as you want to, and you can set up a ceiling mount access point, for example. And then just a bunch of thank yous. Okay, perfect. I don't think there's any other questions that come through. Rack mountable? Okay, that's a good question. Chris, would you keep me honest here? Do these devices support rack mounting?
No, out of the box, they're not rack mountable, but we're actually partnering with one of our other vendors called Rack Mount IT, which actually do racks for a number of the Ubiquiti switches and WatchGuard firewalls, etc. They're going to build a sort of rack bracket that we can use. So it's still in early sort of design phase, but it will be coming.
And then there's an excellent question here from Tariq that asks, can it be managed via the CLI interface? The answer to that is yes. It can absolutely do that, and it actually has a CLI interface in the GUI, in the web GUI of the device, which means you don't have to break out to separate clients, which is really neat. Okay, and does this have any possible links to the Unify environment? So it is managed through the UISP environment as opposed to the Unify environment. But of course, because it's normal network topology or normal Ethernet, of course, you can break this out into, for example, a UDM or something like that and manage those devices separately, respectively. So there's no direct link between them, but essentially you can still obviously have the data flow through between them. And I got a spelling correction here. I'm sorry about that. My dyslexia got the better of me today. So it's I misspelled routing. My apologies. And integration, apparently. It's nice to see so many people checking my spelling. Thank you so much. My spell check obviously failed today. And then another question here, is there a WAN port on this? So essentially any of the ports can be designated as a WAN port. So essentially you assign the WAN functionality to any of the interfaces, and any of those ports can become a WAN interface. It's kind of like how the Microtech devices do it, as a comparison. Okay, with that, I think we'll finish off the questions and I will quickly do the prize draw. So give me 2 seconds here while I pull up the name.